Hello everybody, welcome to Sunya. Yes, welcome to the day one discussion of the worksheet of your environment prelims crash course. Okay, I expect that you should watch your lectures and after watching the lecture you can attempt the worksheet. Here I'll be discussing the questions from the worksheet. Now in case if you have not done your worksheets or if you have not watched the lectures, I request you to please do so. So those of you who are directly watching this, I request them to watch lecture 1.1, okay? And you should watch lecture 1.2. That should help you to do the questions in the worksheet. The basic idea is that suppose you get a question wrong, you should revisit the concept. And when you solve more questions, that is going to give you a good sense of how to attempt these questions, right? So you do have the access to the prelim static notes. In this, we are going to cover the chapter number 1, Introduction to Environment and Ecology, right? That you should be referring here. And we are discussing the day 1 worksheet, right? So let us start with question number 1. In this, it says that consider the following statements with respect to ecology of an area, okay? First of all, see, there are two terms here. One is biosphere mentioned in statement number 1, where the biosphere is the structural and the functional part of an ecosystem. Again, a term ecosystem. And then, if one part of the ecosystem is damaged or disappears, it has a direct impact on the other species, right? So there are two statements that we need to understand and then analyze. And it is asking us which of the following statements is incorrect, right? So if you read the first statement carefully and if you recall our lectures, what did we understand? We understood that yes, this is the sequence in which we have to study. We have individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome, and then biosphere. So, ecosystem is actually the structural and the functional part of biosphere and not the other way around, right? You cannot interchange these two terms. Biosphere is basically when I'm talking of the intersection of the living component of lithosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere, right? This is the land component, lithosphere. This is the air component, atmosphere. The water component, hydrosphere, right? So, ecosystem is the structural and the functional part. This is something which we already understood, right? So, statement 1 has been twisted. This should ideally be in this side. So, this statement is wrong. So it is asking us incorrect. So definitely one has to be in the answer. Then if one part of the ecosystem is damaged or disappears, it has a direct impact. So yes, we know that things are interconnected. So if one part is damaged, that is also going to have a direct impact on other species. So that is a correct statement, right? It is asking us which of the following is incorrect. Yes, so the answer is A, one only. Is it fine? Yes. Now, the second statement also follows what we understood in the first statement. What is the correct order of sequence from from lower to the higher order? This is something that we need to understand first of all, right? So here, first of all, I think you can easily make out what should be the correct sequence. It has to be C, population, community, ecosystem, biome, and biosphere, right? I don't think now you should be having problems with concepts like these. Fine. Let us understand the question on niche. Again, we have discussed this in great detail in our lecture. So, a niche is a community of plants and animals which have a common characteristics in which they live in. See, when we discussed niche, I emphasized on the word unique. Okay, the niche is a unique, first of all, functional role of a species in an ecosystem. So it basically means this cannot be common because yes, it is unique. The species is going to perform its specific functions, right? So we are basically talking of the unique functional role, number one. Okay. Second, similar species may have similar niche. No, again, it goes along with the same point. The similar species won't have a similar niche. Again, this is also wrong. So, statement 1 and statement 2, they do not follow the definition of a niche, right? So, in that case, this is going to be wrong. Your answer in this case, it is asking you which of the following is correct. Answer is D, none of the above. Now, very important, we've done this biotic interactions in a lot of detail. I hope you remember all the 6 interactions which we did. Okay. So, what was our understanding? That we'll firstly write the code. So, the statement 1 is commensalism One species is harmed and other is benefited. Now what did we learn? Commensalism was plus and zero. One species was benefited while the other was neither benefited nor harmed. Okay, so first statement it is saying one is harmed. No, one is benefited. This is wrong. Second statement, in amensalism, one species is benefited. Now, this is also incorrect. This species is harmed. So, what they've done is they have interchanged the definitions of 1 and 2. Okay. Example, we've already seen the examples. Let's say for commensalism, it is the epiphytes which grow on the trees, especially in the tropical rainforests. That will be an example. Like, for example, these trees, right? They will get, let's say, support and nutrition, but the other tree is not benefited or harmed, while the epiphytes is benefited, right? That we've already understood. Then, amensalism, one species is actually harmed, right? Let's say if this is a big tree and this is a small tree. This there is sun, so the sunlight and the nutrition is taken up by the big tree, but this is blocking the sunlight for the small tree. So if I see the interaction of these two species, this is negatively impacted and this is not. Okay. So in amensalism, one is harmed. Okay. Then in predation, both the species are harmed. See, predation, just think of simple example of a lion and a deer. So if the lion is feeding on the prey, okay, so lion is of course benefited. So one is benefited, one is harmed. Don't like both are not harmed, both are basically harmed in competition. So three is also wrong. The answer is asking you which of the following is incorrect. Actually, all the three are incorrect. Okay, moving forward, these things we have already discussed in the class. This is the example I was telling you about. Okay, now let us discuss what is an ecotone. Ecotone, when we discussed, let's say this was a land ecosystem, and this, let's say, is a water-based ecosystem. So this particular region where these two regions overlap, the zone of tension is known as the ecotone. Okay. So first statement, an ecotone is a zone of transition. Yes, this term we also understood. It is a zone of transition between two biological communities. Absolutely correct. Where they meet, where the two of them meet and merge. Yes. It contains some entirely different organisms. Yes, let's say there's a frog here, let's say there is a fish here. So in this case of an ecotone, there can be some organisms which are absolutely different. That is absolutely correct. And then I also showed you the graph of population density. So in ecosystem 1, the population density, let's say, is less. Here it's let's say is less, but in ecotone the population density is going to increase. Okay, it is going to be greater. So this also we have understood. All the three statements related to ecotone are correct. My answer is going to be D, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, right? This thing we've understood. Examples, let's say, for ecotone were mangroves, river banks, right? Wetlands, grasslands, right? These things we've understood very well in the class. And also terms like edge effect, edge species, so on and so forth. Then the question on ecological succession, this we've done in great detail. Okay. So first, the final stage of the succession is called pioneer community. No, this is actually pioneer community is the first stage. The final stage leads to climax community. Okay, this thing we've already understood. Then successive stages lead to decrease in productivity. Now let's see the diagram. Here you don't have any vegetation, and as the time proceeds, right, the vegetation is increasing. Now if the vegetation is increasing, the definition of ecological productivity, what did we understood? That the rate of biomass production is increasing, right? So let's say in the climax community, you have big forests. So of course, they will have a lot of biomass produced, right? So successive stages lead to this should be increase in productivity with time. Hence, this statement is wrong. Again, statement one is wrong. Okay. Then succession brought about by living organisms of a community itself is allogenic. We discussed two types of successions in this case. One was autogenic. In fact, this statement defines what is autogenic. Autogenic is succession brought about by living organisms of a community itself, autogenic. And then you have allogenic. Allogenic is maybe the succession is brought about by this is community number one and this is community number two. The organisms of community number 2 helping out the community number 1, that is known as allogenic. So again, this statement is also wrong. The answer here is going to be D, none. Okay, moving forward. Okay, this we've understood in a lot of detail. Then we move on to ecological pyramids. This also we've done in great detail. So let's see statement number 1. Pyramid of numbers can be both upright and inverted. This we discussed in the class. The answer is yes. Now I want you to please mention in the comment section. Tell me the one example of upright and also one example of inverted. Additionally, I also want you to write what in the pyramid of biomass, one example of upright and one example of inverted. Okay. Then pyramid of energy is always upright and the flow of energy is from top to bottom. Now see, the first part is correct. Yes, always upright. But if you know, let's say these are your plants or primary producers, or let's say these are the autotrophs. Okay, so they produce the food which is then eaten up by a primary consumer, secondary consumer, and let's say here you have the final, the apex predator. So if here is the maximum food, so the flow of energy is going to be from the bottom to top in unidirectional. And by the way, pyramid of energy is always upright, right? And the flow is always unidirectional. So the flow of energy is going to be from bottom to top. This becomes wrong. Now, third statement says that pyramids in biomass, the biomass can be represented as dry weight of the mass at each trophic level. This, in fact, is the correct definition here. Okay, so this is absolutely correctly mentioned that yes, the biomass can be represented as this weight. Now, please very alertly see the statement is asking you what is incorrect. Statement 2 is incorrect. Statement 1 was correct. Statement 3 was also correct. So here the answer is 2 only. Okay, right. Then we move on to another question on pyramids. So a food chain illustrates, let's see, all the possible transfers of energy, right? It actually should be food web. We have seen the difference between food chain and a food web. So food web illustrates all the possible transfers of energy. This is absolutely correct. Then there were two chains which we understood. One was detritus food chain, remember, right? And then we also saw grazing food chain. Detritus food chain has detritus, let's say dead remains of plants and animals, which is then, let's say, eaten up by a detritivore like earthworm, which then can be eaten up by a hawk or a snake, right? So yes, detritus food chain is made up of saprotrophs. Sapro means dead. Those who feed on the dead are saprotrophs to meet their energy and nutrients by degrading dead organic matter. Absolutely correct. Okay. Oh, sorry. The first statement, yes, it should have been food web. So food chain it is mentioned. So yes, food chain is going to be wrong. Then we move forward in an aquatic ecosystem. Grazing food chain is the major conduit of energy. This is absolutely correct. And you might ask, sir, what is detritus food chain? So detritus food chain is basically having the major conduit of energy in the land-based or terrestrial ecosystems. Fine. Okay. And the last statement, amount of energy flow increases. No, we understood the 10% law. As and when we move from one trophic level to the other, there only 10% of the energy is transmitted. Okay, so you lose 90% of the energy in metabolic activities and respiration. Okay, so again, statement number 4 will get wrong. Question is asking you what is correct. 4 cannot be in the answer. 3 was also correct and 2 was also correct. So answer will be 2 and 3. Okay, so I hope you understand all the questions which we've discussed in this lecture. Okay. And we will be solving each day-wise practice sheets. Those of you who are really eager to improve and solidify your prelims, you can join our affordable prelims crash course very soon. The seats are running out very fast. So get yourself registered at the earliest. Yeah, you can join the online course or offline course, whatever you may join, right? You can see the details here in the slide, right? And then I'll be meeting you very soon in day 2 discussion. Till then, goodbye. Take care.